Good evening and welcome to our May Committee of the Whole meeting. This is the meeting where we are reviewing contracts, policy matters for consideration in our June regular board business meeting. I'm going to start with roll call. Director Decker.
I'm here.
Director Smith.
Here.
Director Zavala.
Here.
And I am here. Director Barrows is representing the board in another VPS commitment tonight, so she is not in attendance. I'm going to go ahead and start with Dr. Snell with the superintendent report.
Thank you, Director Sproul. This evening, I don't have any specific report other than to kind of move forward with some of the contracts for your review and open it up for any questions. Also, I think we have Taylor Richmond here. There's a policy on here as well tonight. And so I think without further ado, I'll turn it over to Brett to start us with the contracts. And Brett, I'll go ahead and share the screen and pull those up as you're talking to them, if that works.
That would be great. Thank you. All right, we have a few of them today, so I'll kind of go through them and by all means at any time just jump in and ask any questions you might have, but otherwise I'll try to keep us moving. Our first recommendation is an annual process by which we formally approve membership in WIAA, and then there's a resolution that delegates authority to conduct certain events under the leadership of WIAA, and those obviously would be the competitions with other districts and other regions of the state. So the resolution that we will be asking you to approve is resolution number 914. But again, these are pretty routine annual processes by which we join and then support the events that WIAA conducts on our student athletes' behalf. Okay, I'll keep us moving to a couple technology ones that are both funded by our tech levy. And so they're significant investments, but that's dedicated resources that our taxpayers have provided us specifically for these purposes. And as you all know, these are not resources that we could divert to more general purposes. We need to keep them in that technology space to afford our students the opportunities that our taxpayers generously support through that levy. The first one is a recommendation to approve purchase agreement number 2024-011, and that would purchase 1,700 Chromebooks. I don't know that it says on the recommendation, but those would be focused on our sixth graders. Although I think VSAA and iTech, they still use laptops for sixth grade, but all the other comprehensive schools, the Chromebooks have been judged to be an appropriate device for those students and their academic needs. The selected vendor for this purchase was Insight Public Sector. And again, the funding source was the tech levy, and the amount for this investment is $789,021 plus Washington state sales tax. And then similarly on the technology, also funded by the tech levy itself, is a series of laptops and towers that would go to our high schools. And so the recommendation is to approve purchase agreement number 2024-014 for Lenovo ThinkPads and towers. The grand total, I think, on the devices is 83 of the ThinkPad laptops and 127 of the Ultra towers, and then the associated accessories. All of that totaling $487,914.99 plus Washington state sales tax. So any questions on those two large technology investments of our tech levy?
Brett, I just have one question. You said the Chromebooks were for sixth graders. Is that because devices are assigned to students and moving up with students, and therefore we need kind of a fresh batch of Chromebooks for the incoming sixth graders?
Yeah, this is largely replacing. I mean, we do have a replacement cycle where we update those. In this particular one, I think was motivated by, yeah, the academic, the needs for more up-to-date technology, but also we've suffered a lot of damage and loss in that particular group. And so it was more efficient to just kind of refresh the whole thing than to try to come up with piecemeal with different generations of devices.
So the incoming sixth graders that are new to the Chromebooks will all have kind of the same generation product. So they'll be learning together on the same, it'll be consistent across the board.
Correct.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, I'll move us on to a special service recommendation that we approve a client service agreement between the district and Shrub Oak International School. And unfortunately, we've seen a few of these over the last couple of years where we have some students that their IEP calls for some very, very specialized supports and structures. And in this case, as we have seen in others, that's the residential placement area or a program that would best serve their needs. And so the recommendation is that we approve this client service agreement with Shrub Oak International School to place a student with those that would benefit from that programming in the amount of $573,200. And I'll just note that, as I think you all are aware, we will pursue safety net, state safety net funding for the excessive cost of this program. And we've had great success in recouping most of those costs through the safety net historically. Questions on Shrub Oak International School? All right, then.
Hold on, sorry, I was muted when I tried to talk.
Okay.
What is the funding source? Is this through special services?
Yes, it'll be our general fund, which is where our operating costs for special services and special education funnel. But again, to be more specific, we're hoping to recoup most of the costs through the state safety net program.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, if there's no other questions, we'll move on to a capital project recommendation using, again, dedicated capital projects funds. Our recommendation is that we accept an agreement between the district and Capacity Commercial Group for Real Estate. And I think we've been engaged in several conversations with interested parties on unused surplus properties that we have, and then also planning for our long-term future. Quite frankly, some of the opportunities and situations have required some specialized kind of folks that understand the market, understand the requirements that we might have as we navigate these things. And so it's our recommendation that we bring on an expert to help make sure that we don't move in a way that we're going to regret down the road, basically. So, and again, this would be funded out of any deals that we make through the Capital Projects Fund. All right, then I'll move us on to a recommendation to award bid number 2024-008 regarding tenant improvements at Skyview High School, specifically in our Family and Consumer Sciences program. This particular project was funded out of the general funds, but more specifically our career and technical education funds, which are a grant kind of categorical dedicated resource within the general fund that must be spent in that program. The recommendation is that we award the bid number 2024-008 to Banach LLC in the amount of $241,500 plus Washington State sales tax. All right, I'll keep us moving to the next recommendation, which is to approve purchase agreement number 2024-015 with Safe Fleet. This is a pretty significant upgrade of the technology supporting our pupil transportation program. We're really excited after some pilot work that we've done on several buses as to the functionality. Really, the investment is significant, but it's an opportunity for us to dramatically increase the data flow, the communication, and the sophistication of how we support those buses on the road so that they can stay on time. Parents have a better sense of where their bus is, and so they can adjust accordingly without having to make several phone calls, which puts extra burden on our buildings as well as transportation. So we think this is going to be a really, really significant improvement in the user experience and our capacity to serve out of that transportation area. The recommendation is that we approve the contract with Safe Fleet and in the amount of $420,617 plus Washington State sales tax.
Brett, can I just ask a question? So I know you said communication. Will it also potentially impact routes for next year?
Yes, we believe that it'll be there's the opportunity to much more effectively adapt routes, adjust routes, monitor routes with very, very specific GPS data. And I think this is much more interactive in terms of where there's road construction, where there might be dead end streets, where buses can't turn around. So we're anticipating significant improvement there. The other thing that I'm personally really excited about, because I'm thinking of our offices are going to be a little bit stressed next year as we adapt to a reduced amount of support in there. Parents will have the opportunity to download an app and connect that app to their student specific routing information. And so they'll be able to see buses as they move through their routes. And we're hoping that that reduces dramatically the phone calls, the questions, and really provides a much more transparent, kind of user-friendly experience for parents to know, okay, the bus is 5 minutes away. There's no reason to be upset or concerned. I'll just wait it out versus where's the bus? So then somebody's got to get on the radio and say, hey, where is that bus? And we hope that parents will embrace that functionality, and we believe that that's a much more efficient way of providing the assurance that their student will arrive safely wherever, whether they're coming to school or home, without having to have 3 or 4 people possibly interacting, trying to get the answers.
Will it also kind of assist with route planning? Just, I know that as census changes and everything, or is that, this is more just the management of transportation?
No, it's definitely got a routing element. Now, we do have an automated routing system now. We believe this one's much more sophisticated, but I wouldn't probably be able to specifically tell you the differences. And AJ unfortunately had another commitment tonight, or else we would. I know he's interacted extensively in the comparison and trying to do the analysis of what the benefits will be. And you're right, I'm focused on the user and the organizational capacity, but he's very much excited about the actual technical upgrades that it'll provide, and specifically around routing.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Brett, I have a question or clarification real quick.
Yeah.
The description here references student tracking, and I'm assuming what you mean by that is what you just described, tracking the buses, like almost like watching your Uber get closer and closer. I just want to clarify that we're not tracking individual students, but rather the vehicle they are supposedly riding on.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there is I guess 2 things. Number one, whether the student's on the bus or not is very restricted to authorized guardians that would have specific access to that student's whereabouts on that bus. But it is actually like when a student boards the bus, the driver's going to have a list of all of the students that are scheduled to ride that bus with their pictures until they get to know their names. We'd like to think they're going to know the names quickly. But they basically report that student as getting on their bus. And again, a very secure platform that only authorized users can see for their authorized students.
Right. So I just want to be clear because I know people might have questions about how that would work. Like there's no technology in terms of anything that would be carried by the student or worn by the student, or that would be, yeah.
Nope,
I assumed as much, but thank you for clarifying.
There are other models, but we selected because each bus is going to have an iPad basically. And that iPad not only is going to do that, which I'll describe in just a second, but it also gives audible turn-by-turn directions so that when we have a sub bus driver, we have a lot of problems with them trying to follow the directions and drive and do all the other things. So we think it's going to be much more efficient, more safe, more on time when there's disruptions to the normal driver. But going back to that iPad, as they pulls up to a stop, it's going to know who's expected at that stop. And it's going to show the pictures and the names of the students expected at that stop. And as they board, this driver can just press one button per rider to record that they've entered the bus and they should be progressing towards school.
It's essentially taking attendance in a classroom then.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you.
Nope, great questions. All right, well, we'll move on to our last few here. And the next one is to approve a change order with McGuire Projects and Development for the Skyview tenant improvements. I think this is a different program than the CTE classrooms. The recommendation is that we approve the change orders in the amount of $29,635.20 plus Washington State sales tax. Looks like, as you can see, this one has to do with some walls and ceiling movement to adapt some spaces and some acoustical protections, as well as some electrical and lighting adjustments that will make the space more cohesive. So, and again, that's funded out of the capital projects fund, bond funds. Maybe I'll move on to the next one, which is also capital projects, and then we can pause. Our recommendation is to accept the purchase agreement number 2021-041, which is the security systems that were installed at Ruth Bader Ginsburg Elementary. And again, this is one where we've already completed the work and it's been inspected, and our staff and architects and projects support team recommends that it be accepted so that the retainage can be released, or they can work towards the release of the retainage. The vendor in this one was Entrance Controls Integrated Security, and the amount of that contract, which again has already been paid, was $223,123.57 plus Washington State sales tax. So those are the two capital project ones. Any questions on those? And then last but not least, another exciting one, at least in my estimation, last month you all approved the purchase of some electric buses that are to be funded, or at least the price differential plus a little bit is between an electric bus and a diesel bus, is funded by a grant that we received from the Department of Ecology. Now we're far enough along in the design of the electrical infrastructure to recommend that we purchase the chargers for those buses. We're also the recipient of a Clark Public Utility Grant that provides for a couple extra chargers for us to build out that capacity. Clark's been a great partner in all of this, but Clark PUD has been. And so the recommendation is number 2024-016. And it would provide 3 chargers that would be purchased through the Department of Ecology grant, and 2 more that would be purchased in the through the Clark PUD grant. The total cost is $122,735.24 plus Washington sales tax. Although I think with chargers, there might be some elements of it, the installation, that is taxable, but I think the actual chargers themselves are exempt from sales tax, if I'm not mistaken. All right, hearing no questions, I think that's all we had agendized for today. So thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Director Sproul, my internet here at Skyview High School, all of a sudden I froze a few times during that. So if all of a sudden I freeze again, I apologize. I'll turn it over to Taylor to talk about a second reading here.
Thank you, Dr. Snell. And first, I'll just note that there's three procedures that are being updated that we're providing notice of on this agenda, two of which are being updated at the end of this month, and then an update to our student records procedure, which modifies the definition of directory information. So we're providing advance notice of that will take effect for next school year, but we wanted to provide advance notice of that and get that into our student handbooks for next year. Then we have a second reading of policy 2110, which was read at the board meeting last week. This is a revision to our transitional bilingual instructional program policy to rename this policy as the multilingual educational program, and the effect of the revisions is to incorporate the district's dual language programming as a function of the policy, and to establish that that dual language programming will be at both the elementary and the secondary levels. So we'll be recommending a second read and adoption of that at the June board meeting. Are there any questions? All right.
Thank you, Taylor. Under the teaching and learning, there is a recommendation to approve instructional materials. And as usual, there is a report here that includes the notes from the meeting and identifies any challenging content in the texts that are being recommended for approval. I don't know if anybody had any questions or had a chance to review that yet. If questions do come up, let us know so that we can follow up with you on those. And then we do have a potential executive session scheduled at this point. I don't have any specific agenda item for that, but we typically have it on in case. Sometimes it might be evaluation of an employee or any other issues that come up that Director Sproul would notice and give the context for in the meeting in the length of time.
Yes. Are you referring, so for tonight, we do have an executive session. The purpose to discuss with legal counsel pending litigation. And secondly, consideration of real estate under RCW 42.30.110. We estimate that this will take about an hour. So I will be back in an hour at 6:53. There will be no action tonight to follow, so I will just be returning to adjourn the meeting.
And I think that's it for the June 4th meeting at this point. If there are other items added, we will notice the board so that you can be aware of those. And then the final agenda will post the Thursday before the meeting.
G2 It is 6:52 PM and our executive session is concluded. That means our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and good night.